Hello, welcome to today's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now we have a lot of requests on the channel to do plain killer Sudoku, and I realise we haven't done one for a while. So we're going to remedy that today with a bit of a vintage puzzle. This puzzle is 6 years old and it's by the South Korean compiler Seungjae Kwak. Now Seungjae is one of the best solvers of Sudoku in the world, but he also sets puzzles occasionally. And yeah, this appeared 6 years ago on a Facebook group I'm a member of, and it is remembered so fondly by people that they have recommended it to the channel. Now that's pretty remarkable if you think about it. If you think about whether you can read or remember a book you've read 6 months ago, I certainly am not the best at that. So to remember a puzzle as being very good from 6 years ago suggests that this might be something special. As usual, if you want to have a go, and I do recommend it, click on the link under the video. That will take you to our webpage where you can play along on whichever device takes your fancy. Now, with that, let's get cracking, and I'm going to try and solve this. Now, as I was putting it into the software, I noticed a couple of things. First thing I noticed was there are two enormous 45 cages. So we know these must be 9 cells large if they have a 45 total, because you can't repeat a digit in a cage in Killer Sudoku. And you can also see these are sort of symmetrically disposed in the grid. And the grid seems generally to sort of have mirror symmetry around this diagonal here. Or it's very close to mirror symmetry anyway. And then the other thing I noticed was there are 3 cells here that are not part of a cage at all. So these 3 cells just sit on their own, unlabelled. Now that is suspicious, I have to say. And I did wonder, I wondered whether what we're going to have to do is some horrific a horrific amount of addition here in order to see if these cells are restricted. Because if we look around the rest of the grid, you can see there are not many gimmies here. We've got a 22 cage, that could contain a 9, I suppose. Well, it must contain a 9. This 28 cage, there's only 2 ways of making 28 in 4 cells. That's 4, 7, 8, 9 and 5, 6, 8, 9. But apart from that, I'm not seeing a great deal of anything that we can do. So let's look at this. I mean, what do I mean by saying we can work out the value of those 3 cells? Well, let's have a think. If we saw the finished solution to the puzzle and we added up every single cell we could see, what would it total? Well, we know any box in a Sudoku will contain the numbers from 1 to 9. We've already looked at the fact that the numbers 1 to 9 add to 45. So we're going to need 9 lots of 45 if we add up everything in the grid. And that's 405. So if I add up all of the cages in the grid, all of the cage totals, I'm going to get some number that's less than 405. And the difference will be these 3 squares. So let's do that and see what we get. So we're going to get 10, 43, 88, 120, 150, 200, 245, 258, 259, 279, 289, 298, 320, 331, 1359, 359, 402. Okay, so we get, right, so we get 402. Now 405 minus 402 is 3. So these cells have to sum up to 3. So that is a nice start. We're going to get 1s in all of those squares. Now these 2 9 cages look important to me, because if you can't put a 1 in a 9 cage of 3 cells, it must be 2, 3 and 4. we look at this top box, we've got 21 plus 10 more, so that's 31. So these two squares have got to sum up to 14 to make 45 in total. Now this one can't be a 5 because that would repeat the 5 in the 10 cage. So that could be a 9, a 6 or an 8. This can be a 6, 8 or a 5. Let's look at the options then. So that's 1, 2 or 4. This is 5, 6 or 3. (13, 20, 34). These two add to 11. 32. These two add to 13 without using 4 9s. We can't put the 5 in this one. So if this is 8, 5, it must be in this order, and otherwise it's 6, 7. So this is 2, 3 or 4, and this is 4, 5 or 6. This must have a 9 in it, we've said that already. Now there is, look, if we look at these 3 block boxes, these will sum up to 135, but if we look carefully we can see that there are cages here that are completely contained within these 3 boxes. So if we add these up, what do we get? We get 42, 87, 97, 130. So these 2 squares have got to sum up to 5. Oh, that's huge, because now this can't be a 5 or a 6. This is a 3, and that one's a 2. So this is an 8. These had to sum to 14, I think. So this was a 6. This is a 4. These are 5, 7 and 9. This one is an 8. Oops, 8. This one is a 5. This one is a 6. 6 means that's a 6, look. Let's get rid of the 9 there. This must be a 7 and a 9. Wow, okay, so we... the 6 is nice, look, because that disambiguates the 28 cage. This can no longer contain a 6, so it must be 4, 7, 8 and 9. 8 down here, so that there's an 8 in one of those 2 squares. So we can't quite lock the 8 into these, into the 21 cage. But now the central square becomes this gives us at least a bit of a restriction on this square, look, because we've got 20. Oh yeah, so we've got 34. These 2 need to add to 11. So the options are 4, 7, 3 and 2. 3 and 4 there, rule out 3 and 4 from, so this can't be 7 or 8. So this is 2, 7. This is 4, 9. And now this square is the only place an 8 can go in the 28 cage. Oh yes, and now look, these 8s, they're forcing 8 into the 12 cage. Now if we have an 8 in the 12 cage, it must be a 1, 3 and 8 combination, and that one can't be 8. Now what can we do with that? 3, 8. The 2. A 2 is nice because we can't put a 2 in a 20 cage. So there must be a 2 in one of those 2 squares, which means there's a 2 in one of these 2 squares. And we have to watch the interconnectivity, because this 45 cage is so large. Once we lock a 2 into it up here, that means there's no 2 down there. But I don't don't think that's enough to be that useful yet. Ah, the ones, look. There must be a 1 in one of those squares. There's a 1 in one of these squares as well. Down here, you can't put a 1 in the 21 cage. So there's a 1 there. 1's here. Ah, hang on. So we've got a funny arrangement of 1's in the grid. This is very interesting because we know we can't have a 1 here and a 1 here because that would put 2 1's in the 31 cage. So one of these must be a 1. Now, wherever we put the 1 in the 45 cage, it stops its friend being a 1. So if this is the real one, this can't be the real one, and this would have to be a 1. And we get a pair like this. It's sort of like an X-wing, but completely offset. And if this is the one, that will be, if this is the one, that will be the one. So there is always a 1 in the wings of this 31 cage. That means this square can't contain a 1, because if there's a 1 in either of these positions, and there is, that square cannot be a 1. There's a 7 in one of those two positions. There's a 7 in one of these squares, and there's this 7. So now there's something going on here, because if we add 12 to 31, we get 43. With this square not being accounted for. So whatever I put into this square, let's say I made this square, what can it be? Let's make it a 5. If this is a 5, that would be 48. And then these two squares would have to sum up to 3, because I know that the total for this box is 45. But this, so that's interesting. Actually, that's very interesting. So this can never be a 4, because if it's a 4, these two squares would both have to equal 1. If it's a 5, these have to be a 1 and a 2 pair, and they can't be, because there's a 2 here and a 2 locked into one of those squares. So this is not 4 or 5. It's obviously not 1, 2 or 3, because otherwise we simply can't have a high enough total. So this is 6, 7 or 9. So if it's 6, this would have to be a 1, 5 pair. I can't see why that isn't. Well, there's a 5 there. Is there a way of limiting the 5 over on this side? Don't know. If this can't be a 7, because I've got 7's pencil marked in there already. Oh, so if we can eliminate the 9. Now, if this is 9, this has to be 1, 6. It can't be 1, 6. That's unbelievable. So this square can only be a 6, and this is a 1, 5 pair, and there's a 5 there. So this is a 1, this is a 5. Good grief, this is a 1. No, hang on, that's not right. That's not right. I've done my arithmetic wrong. It's not 1 and 5, is it? It's 1 and 3. 6. Let me just double check that I didn't make a mistake with the other one. So this delete. This was 6, 7 or 9. 43 plus 6, yeah, 1, 3 is what I was looking for. For 7, it would have been 1, 4. But 7 is ruled out by that, so that's okay. And then 9 will be 1, 6, which is ruled out. So this is a 6, but I want to put 1, 3 in the wings, and I can't limit it. Oh no. But it gives me a 1, 3 pair here. So this square is an 8. That one's not 8. Wow. That is a fascinating pattern. Oh, and now look, where can I put a 2 in row 1? This 2 here rules that square out from being a 2 because it's all part of the 45 cage. So that's got to be a 2. That puts a 2 in this position in column 1. There's only one square a 2 can go. That must be a 4. This must be 5, 7 and 9 to complete the box. That can't be a 7. This must be 5. This must be 5, 7 or 9. I was just checking the rest of this 45 cage in case 5, 7 or 9. 2 must be in one of those squares. Right, so what am I meant to spot now? 4, 1, 3, 1, 3. This 3 is pointing at that square, so that's a 1, 3, 1, 3. Now, this is huge. Now there is a 3 locked into the 20 cage, so it must be 3, 8 and 9. There's an 8 here, so that's an 8. This is a 4 now, it can't be a 9 anymore. This can't be a 9 now, so that's a 5. That can't be a 5 now. This square must be a 3 or a 4 to complete the column, and there's a 3 here. 4, 3. So this must be 3 and 5, which is again resolvable. This must be a 5 now. So this 13, we need to make 8, so we need 2 and 6, which must be this way round. This is a 7. Now this 5 sees that 5 through the 45 cage. What a remarkable puzzle. 3, 9 here, so that's got to be a 9, that's a 7. There must be a 2, look, in this 20 cage to go along with the 7. So that means the other 2 digits in this 20 cage have got to add up to 11 without using 2, 9, 3, 8 or 4, 7. So this must be 2, 5 and 6, and there's a 6 there. So that's a 6, that's a 2, that's a 5. Look at the 5s now are important because these 5s lock a 1, 5 pair at the bottom. This must be a 3 or a 9. These 2 squares are 8 and 9, so this one must be a 4 to complete the 21 cage. This is a 4 now. These 2 squares have got to be 6 and 7. Now that's beautiful. This 6, 7 here, look at the effect they have. That rules a 6 and a 7 out from all those squares. So there must be a 6 and a 7 in the 21 cage. And there's a 6 there. So in fact that's a 6. So this must need a 7 and an 8 to complete the box, which means up here we must need a 1 and a 9. That fixes the 7, look, that fixes the 9 and the 7 there. This square's got to be an 8. That 9 fixes this one. This is a 2, this is a 3. Wow, okay, so now I guess what we have to do is the same trick down in the bottom, because we've not looked at the fact that there's going to be, for exactly the same reasons we looked at the top, there must be a 1 in one of these two squares in the wings of this. Is that a 33 cage? Let me just check. Yeah, so that's 43. So we've got this, exactly the same sort of maths going on. Whatever we put in here, these two squares have got to sum up to 2 less than it. So this square can never be a 3, because that would mean these two squares needed to add up to 1. So the 3 is down at the bottom. That places the 3 there, look, which fixes the 9 and the 3. These two squares have got to be, what's that, 4 and 9. Let's put those in like that. These 9s now align in rows 8 and 9, so we know there's a 9 in one of these squares. But this square can only be a 1 or a 5. And in fact, if we look at this square, it can't be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. So this square can only be 7, 8 or 9. It can't be 7 because there's already a 7 in the 45 cage. That gives us an 8, 9 pair in the column. So these two squares are 5 and 7. There's a 7 there. 7, 5 like that. This 5 means this square can't be a 5. So that's a 1 and the 5 is in the wing, which means that the 1 is at the other end of the wing. Oh my goodness. So now there's a 2 in one of these squares. The wings add up to 6, so this must be an 8. 8 here, 9 here. 7 is resolving that. This must be a 6. 7 fixes the 7 and the 8. The 7 also fixes the 9 and the 7 over there, which fixes the 9 and the 4, which fixes the 4 and the 2. That forces, I think this, oh no, we still don't, yes it does, it fixes the 2, fixes the 9, fixes the 9 and the 5. This square is a 5, we need 1 and 4 here. Yes, what a puzzle that was. I think I was a bit slow with the 1s around these wings and spotting that, but apart from that, that was just amazing. Let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed it, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.